Hey everyone, it's Desiree. Halloween is fast approaching, and when it comes to Halloween, it's one of my favorite seasons when it comes to gift tags, cards, bag toppers for the treat bags, or anything else. So I decided to make a Halloween card, just one of many. I took a piece of Canson watercolor XL paper and I quartered it, cut it into 4. I'm then going to stamp on this, but it's going to have a watercolor feel. And to get that effect, what I'm doing is I'm taking the distress inks that I'm using, putting them on the stamp, and then I'm spraying them with water and then applying it to the paper. This allows for that watercolor effect, but also the stamp shape at the same time. The colors won't bleed together. The colors that I'm using are Carved Pumpkin, Twisted Citron, and finally Wilted Violet. And again, I'm only using this one stamp, and just by turning it, you get the sense that it's a different stamp when it comes to this piece of paper. Once we have those set, we want to make sure that they dry. Now, I'm extremely impatient, so I will use my heat tool. In the meantime, I'm also grabbing an acrylic block there, as you can see, and I'm putting some black soot on there and adding water to it. That's because I want to flick some black specks going through this just to add to that effect. Again, going to heat set those because we want to stamp on top of them and we don't want them to smear. So I'm going to grab my stamp tool and I'm going to remove the foam insert because these are rubber cling stamps. So they're a little thicker than the acrylic clear stamps that we use. We all have them. But we do need to remove that foam insert, which will allow us to use these stamps. So I'm positioning them over the stamped areas that I already have there, and I'm going to pull out my VersaFine Black Onyx ink. This is a great black ink, especially for sentiments. You can really get a good, crisp impression. And you're going to see that I'm going to stamp these a couple times. The beauty of this ink too is it's a pigment ink. So it doesn't dry as fast as a dye ink. So we're going to do some embossing on top of these. Sorry for the glare. Working on the lightings when it comes to my videos. So you can see I'm applying some embossing powder. This is clear because I want the images to stay black. This embossing powder is from Michael's, their Recollections collection, the clear fine. And I think it works perfectly. So we're going to put everything away and we're going to heat set the embossing powder. And you can see the black ink gets a lot crisper as we go through. We're going to clean up the stamps and then we're going to set aside our stamping tool. The next step, I'm going to take my favorite things, wonky rectangle die, and I'm going to position it over my design area, and I'm going to cut out the panel. This is my design panel that's going to go on my typical 4 1/4 and 5 1/2 inch top folding card base. I'm using the black soot just to distress the edges, just give it a hint of color there. This will help to make that panel pop just a little bit more, even though we've used such bright colors. I'm grabbing a piece of black scrap cardstock and using the Happy Halloween sentiment stamp from the set, and I'm using my VersaFine, or excuse me, my VersaMark ink. This is a sticky ink, and now I'm going to use white embossing powder, again from Michael's, the Recollections collection. I believe it's called Snow. I'll have all of the items that I did use listed down below in the description if you're curious. After we've heat set that, I'm tearing the paper. You're going to find that I love to tear paper. I just like the look, I like the feel. I think it adds texture to any card, and it can go with any type of theme, whether it's vintage, in this case it's Halloween, and so forth. I've applied some foam tape to the back just to pop this up, and I'm going to place it on the design panel. Now we need a backing when it comes to this card. We could just apply it to the card base. I'm taking a piece of 80-pound Neenah Solar, and I've cut it at 4 1/4 by 11, and I scored it at 5 1/2. What I'm also going to grab now are some purple, lime green, and some black cardstocks. And yeah, there I go again, still tearing paper. It was like a theme for this card for me. So I'm going to do that to each of the colors. And what you see I'm going to do, I'm going to create, because of the die for My Favorite Things, it didn't cut it at 4 1/4 at 5 1/2. It's a little smaller. So there is a border edge that would be seen around that design base. So I'm going to adhere these with my Tombow Mono dot adhesive runner on this base. They are extending, we'll be trimming those down, but I'm just placing them down in a very random order. It took me a while to really just not have things even and so forth. It was a tough thing, but as you can see, I've gotten over that. So I'm going to flip the card over and I'm going to trim the edges off just to make them even. The scissors that I'm using are those famous Cutter B scissors. They are great, they are sharp, and they have a wonderful point, especially when you're doing fussy cutting. I'm adding my foam tape adhesive again to the back. You can see mine's a little bit wider than everybody else's. I get mine at the local hardware store because I can use coupons. And it works out to be almost the same price, if not less expensive. I'm going to pop that up onto my panel, and our card is done. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit the subscribe or like button below, and stay tuned for more. Check out my blog also, and let's see what you've created today. Supplies that I used in this video will be listed in the description box below. Take care, everyone, and always be creative.